Hey guys, Baily Hancock here. Welcome back. Today we have somebody on that has a job that at least I have thought about from time to time and thought, man, that just sounds like a fun ass job. It sounds like you're getting to drink wine all day and hang out with cool people in bars. So I'm excited to have Erin Williams on. She's a Grand Venn sales representative, and I'll let her tell you all about what that actually means. But that is not what she started out her career doing. So we're going to get to hear a little bit about the windy path that she took to get to what I think sounds like a really cool job. We'll find out if I'm right in that. And we'll get to hear all about her story. So Erin, welcome to the party.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So tell us, I always like to start out by asking, what did little Erin want to be when she grew up?
Actually, that's funny because my mother repeatedly likes to quote this to me. When I was about 4 or 5, I was a mildly overdramatic child. And I used to say, Mom, I want to be a dancer and a singer and a mom, but I don't know if I have time to be a wife.
So who has time for that nonsense?
Yeah, so I distinctly have it quoted back to me what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I have the opportunity to know that one.
But so let's see, of those what, four things, you're the one that you didn't think you were going to be.
Oh God, I know, right?
We haven't gotten to the singer actor yet, mom maybe one day, but yeah, you're the wife part, so that's good.
Yeah, I definitely got to the thing that I was like, I don't know if I have time for that.
I'm sorry, future me is so busy dancing and singing. I don't think I have time for this marriage thing. I love it. That's adorable. So it's funny because we talk about this all the time. Like, I feel like little kids know about 5 jobs when they're growing up, like that you can be. And usually actor, singer, that's at least one of them, right? So did you kind of grow up assuming you would pursue that path, or did you outgrow it at some point?
Well, I really got into artsy stuff early on. I did all of the theater geek things. I was on speech team. I was on show choir throughout high school. Oddly enough, I was also on the math league. I also really loved math. And I remember, so I went to college at Drake University, and I was an acting major. And I'll never forget, on my last day of high school, my math teacher said to me, he's like, yeah, that'll be nice. You're gonna go and be an actor for like a year, but then you'll give it up and go be an engineer. And I used to joke when I was a cocktail waitress in LA. It was one of those crappy nights where you made like no money at all. And I was like, well, sure showed him. Because I definitely went all the way through with my bachelor's in acting. So, yeah.
So you stuck with it. You went all the way.
I did. And I was really, I don't regret getting an acting degree in any way, shape, or form. It was the absolute perfect thing for me. I think the one thing that if there are any future actors that are in school right now, I think my only qualm with getting an acting degree is more an institutional qualm. And that's that college inherently is a meritocracy. And so you kind of believe that, if I'm good enough, I will get work. A plus B equals C. And that is not how life works. A plus B rarely equals C. And I think that was one of those things that you kind of had to learn post-college.
I think we all have that moment where we're like, but hold on a second. I was told that if I show up, get good grades, work hard, then I will succeed. And yeah, that is not how things go, kids. Sorry to burst your bubble.
It is not. And I think it is one of those things that should be something that they should teach early on. But yeah, I acted, I moved to Los Angeles in 2005 after I graduated college, and I joined the hordes of people getting off the boats and buses to act in LA. It's very uncommon, I know, but I was a cocktail waitress for a really long time, and I, as any normal actor, had so many moments where I thought to myself, do I want to do this? Is this my jam? Like, this is so, it's hard, and it's also, acting can be a lottery system. And I always thought, that I would do it until it didn't break my heart to not do it. And there were many years where the thought of not acting broke my heart so much that I was just like, nope, nope, I can't. There's not a chance. And so it was maybe in my mid-20s or so that I got to a point where I cocktail waitressed in this really cool little bar in Venice Beach. And I had one of those managers that was really into wine, and like the kind of into wine that was very infectious. She'd taste us on wine. She'd talk about what she loved about the wines that she liked. And you'd see all these, sales reps come in. And I mean, they looked like they didn't hate their life. They looked like they were actually pretty happy, and don't get me wrong.
Your liquor sales rep that wasn't an enjoyable person.
Yeah, I definitely have met some people. Like, I'll never forget when I was talking to one of the reps, and I will leave the company name unmentioned. And I was like, what do you think? What do you think about this job? Like, I'm thinking of getting into it. And he's like, I don't know, it's hard. You have to have a pretty thick skin. And I go, well, I've been auditioning for jobs where they're rejecting me. They're rejecting my talent, my face. I'm like, rejecting a product I sell? That's nothing. Cool. You don't like it. Let's move on and taste something else.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right. Like the whole attempting to work actor to sales rep is probably the best path one could take.
Oh my God, yeah. And it was funny too, because I very much thought when I realized that I was done acting, that for me, I needed to keep an artistic aspect to my life, but I wanted to change my career. I used to joke that I'm like, I could be a rocket scientist. You literally feel, after being an actor in LA, when you don't want to do it anymore, you feel like you could be like, cool, rocket science interview. I got this. They're going to hire me.
That role.
Yeah.
How long did you actively go on auditions and do all of that stuff in LA?
I'd say about four-ish years for like full active doing it. But I took a step in between before I became a sales rep. I got a job at a place in LA called the Wine House. I ran their gourmet department for a very long time, and no plug, they are one of the best stores in LA. Like, I absolutely adore them, and I adore the family that runs it. And the cool thing about that, I did it for a couple of reasons. One that I knew of, one that I didn't. One, they're a major outlet in the Los Angeles area for the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. Oh. And so I knew, since I didn't have a business degree and I didn't really have any sales experience, my thought of going into the industry, the way I was going to tackle making it happen, was that I wanted to do the educational side of things. And I knew that they offered, the people who work there a discount on the classes, which was going to make my life easier. The other aspect that I didn't know about is when I was there, they used to have the entire staff taste. So when a sales rep came in, everybody got to put their opinions on a sheet. So I was tasting stuff that I never would have had access to before. And so it was a really cool way to, just get excited about it and remember that, oh my God, this is such a great product. This is so much fun. And like, to geek out, because I think it's important to geek out over whatever you want to do in your life.
I think that's a very fair statement. Like, you should be a total nerd about the thing that you spend most of your time doing, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The people that have trouble figuring out what their next move should be, my first question is always, well, what are you insatiably curious about? Like, what do you read about just for fun? What shows do you watch just for fun? What, newsletters do you subscribe to? Like, what's the thing that at trivia night, if that category came up, you'd be like, I got this, guys. This is my category. And that's a really good indicator into something that you should try and look into, at least as a job.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, even now, I've been doing this for over 10 years. And yesterday we had a product launch on some really amazing wines that we just took on in our portfolio. And all of us, people who've been in the industry for forever, just sitting there going, oh my God, this tastes so good. Oh, this is amazing. I'll spend 2 hours listening to you babbling about this. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, okay, so walk me back. So you're cocktail waitressing at night. You're starting to see oh, this wine thing is pretty cool. You ended up taking the job at this wine shop.
Yep.
At this point, are you phasing out of the audition process? Or are you I just need to take a break? What was the process?
I really was. I still did some projects and I still did a couple of fun things, but I didn't really do any of it for the purpose of getting into the industry anymore. Like there were still some auditions that I'm like, this play looks like fun. This video, this movie looks like a cool audition to do. But it really started phasing out as soon as I got very serious about the educational aspect in that job, just because it took a lot of time. I remember I worked a gourmet department, so I used to have to prep a lot of cheese. So I would sit in my little tiny kitchen slicing cheese, looking at these like study cards that I'd made, and just like, one slice, flip card, one slice, flip card.
So you were like just fully diving into this whole world of wine.
Yeah, and I knew pretty quickly that it was the right decision for me. Like it very much felt like the thing it felt right. There was just a part of me, you find your husband, you find your best friend, it just feels right. And this job to me just felt right. But I will say, after I finished up the educational aspect and I got my first sales job, I kind of took an opposite tack because I also knew in LA, so not to get too much into technicalities, but in LA, there are what they call on-premise sales reps, which are sales reps who go to your bars, who go to your restaurants. Then there are two different kinds of off-premise sales reps. There's people who go into independent retail, and then there's people who go into grocery stores. I went into grocery stores because the job sucks. It's awful, and it has a lot of turnover. However, it was a really awesome base. Like, if you ever want to be a waitress and you go get a job at like a big chain restaurant, because you're going to get the training that's required. And then you're going to go, look at me, I've been a waitress for a year at, TGI Fridays. Please hire me on at this cool little lounge.
If you can survive the menu test at the Cheesecake Factory, you can do anything.
Yes. And that's exactly my thought process behind getting this job first. So what I did for the first year, and I remember it was funny too, because a sales rep I knew was like, yeah, and I told him, I'm like, I'm going to do this for like a year, maybe 2 years. And he goes, 1 year, max. That's it. 1 year. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you'll see.
What was it that just makes you burn out or just not excited?
So a couple different things. Number one, your morning has to start before 6 a.m. because in the grocery store world, if you are building displays, if you're putting product on the shelf, it has to be done by 8 a.m., generally speaking. There are some exceptions to that, but like the big grocery stores, that's why you don't tend to see a lot of people loading shelves after 8 a.m. But if you are that weird person that's like woken up at 5 a.m. and needs to go get, I don't know, like bread and coffee or something, and you go there and the aisles are just filled with boxes and crates and pallets, they have to do everything before that time. So you have to get there and take care of all of the business. And the other side of it is that in grocery stores, most of what you are selling is already mandated on a corporate level. So my job was mostly 75% merchandising, 25% sales. So I didn't have a lot of autonomy to be like, hey, check out this amazing new product. Hey, check out this cool new wine or beer. It was more like, hey, I've been loading your shelves for 3 weeks. Can I please have a 50-case display in the center of the store that I'll build before 6 a.m.?
Yeah, that doesn't sound super gratifying.
Yeah, you wear a lot of pants you don't care about because they get pretty gross. But that said, like, it still had its moments, and it was definitely one of those things that I have given this advice to people before and they've taken it. If you want to get into the wine industry, it is a really solid way to start it off. It is a solid way to get your foot in the door to go, I've sold wine for a year, because even if it's only on the grocery store side, people still see it as regular wine sales, and if you have a little education to back it up, then that's kind of one of the ways to get in where people go, you're smart and you know how to do hard work. Because definitely selling
the glamorous side of it.
Oh yeah. Yes, for sure.
So it sounds like you took a very strategic approach to this move, right, into the wine industry. You're like, I need to learn. I need to figure out all of this stuff. Because I had the same experience waiting tables. One of my managers was completely obsessed with wine. And so we were taught everything we needed to, well, way more than we needed to know for the restaurant I was working in. But because of that, I was like, holy shit, this is a real whole industry with a lot of knowledge. And I don't think you ever really stop learning. So it was cool. But so you got turned onto it, and then you got the education, furthered it, and then put in the grunt work to build up that resume. Is it hard to get into? Is this something where there's kind of a barrier to entry?
Um, there's not really, I would say there are many different ways to get into it. However, considering that most 18-year-olds don't know that wine is amazing and, don't quite have a palate for that, or I mean, they wouldn't have necessarily, sometimes they do. Sometimes they have parents who are like, wine is awesome. I want you to try a little bit of it, kind of a European approach to it. And they know that they like it. But I mean, come on, I was drinking sex on the beaches until I was, 22, because I was definitely only drinking at 21. I definitely wasn't drinking younger than that.
All the kids listening, 21, legal age.
21, legal age.
I remember the first time I think probably the first time I actually had wine, I had won at a restaurant in college that I worked at. I had won this fancy steak dinner for a sales contest. And we're at this amazing steakhouse, and I was gonna order like vodka tonic or whatever. God, probably like Malibu and Sprite or something, because that sounds about right for 21-year-old Baily. And my boss who came with me was like, "Oh hell no, you need to get a nice red with this." And I'm like, "Oh, wine's gross. I don't want to drink wine." She's like, "I don't give a shit. I'm paying. You're drinking." I'm like, "Okay." And that was the first time that I understood that you could drink alcohol as a complement to food, not just to get drunk. And I was like, whoa, there's a whole world out there. And that wasn't what switched me over. I drank Merlot for a long time from like shitty bars. So I don't even want to know what I was drinking or how old the bottle was. But yeah, you're right. Younger kids, like they go straight to the crappy beer and to the liquor and the sweet stuff and leave wine to the mid-20s.
Oh, I'll never forget when I first moved to Los Angeles. I was, I don't know, I guess I would have probably been about 22 at that point. And I went over to a wine party, and you got to understand, I hung out with my aunt who's about 12 years older than me. So there were a lot of people that were way older at this party. And it was like, bring a bottle. And I remember I knew nothing about wine, but somebody had told me, yeah, I've had that Livingston Merlot and I really like it. You should bring that over. And I'm all like proud of myself, bringing like a magnum of Livingston to this fancy wine party. And I distinctly, and I will remember for the rest of my life, remember the look on the person's face when I was like, here you go.
Meanwhile, these people like we're how old we are now, can you imagine 22-year-old in your house and you're like, oh, sweetheart.
Yeah. I was just like, I hope this is just charming enough because I clearly have the social cognizance to realize I've made a faux pas.
That's amazing. So I assume you sell Livingston now?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. No.
But you know what? I remember too when I got into the wine industry, my mother used to drink, I used to, there's no past tense here. My mother drinks boxed white Franzia Zin. And I remember when I got into the industry, she goes, so does this mean that I have to switch what I drink? And I go, no, the beauty of wine is that it's like art. Like you like whatever you like. Like if Franzia is your jam, awesome. If Livingston is your jam, awesome. The only thing I ever require of you is that you let me learn your palate so that when I come home, I can bring something that I think you'll like, but you'll just expand slightly out of what you know.
I think that's fair. But yeah, to your point, like, hey, we've all got our likes and dislikes, and there's nothing wrong or right. And shit, if you like cheap wine, good on you. I would much rather have cheap taste than expensive taste any day.
Oh my God, yeah. And I think that's one of the things too that really annoys me about people in the wine industry. There's a joke, and I'm sure it's for a lot of industries, but a lot of people in the wine industry say, yeah, the wine industry is great except for people in the wine industry.
Yeah, I could pass that on for many industries, I think.
Oh, I'm certain you could. So it's one of those things that I if there was anything I was ever going to say to somebody who's like, 21 and thinking, I like this job, it's that, you know what? Like whatever you like, and don't feel like we're a bunch of snotty jerks. Like we're just normal people. We all just get a little bit geekier, and you'll get geekier as you go along,
Yeah, I've leaned into my geekiness over the years for sure. I have no qualms about what I'm super into. Professional development just does it for me, guys. I don't know what to say.
Everybody has their thing, and that's what I'm saying.
I love a good personality assessment. Tell me my strengths. I don't know, whatever.
I hate personality assessments. I hate them.
That's a perfect point, though, right? Like, people often, I think, assume that everybody likes and dislikes the same stuff as them. And so their baseline is themselves. And in reality, and this goes for jobs especially, and like types of roles, the people that have jobs where they're like, I don't know why everybody doesn't want to do my job, are in the right job for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, this is the best job ever. I don't know why everybody wouldn't want to do that. But to other people on the outside, they're like, that seems terrible. I would never want that role. So I say that way too much, but my favorite Southern saying is there's a seat for every ass. And I fully believe that in careers and relationships. You do you. Okay, so when did you get out of the grocery store side of things?
So I did it for literally a year. And then I had, at the time, part of my portfolio was a brand called J-Lore Winery. And I'd heard through the grapevine that they were hiring a Southern California manager for the Los Angeles area. And it was one of those things, I'd kind of been going on some, I was about to say auditions. I'd kind of been going on some interviews, to sort of get out and do something different. And it was one of those things where every interview, it was like, I'm also I'm secretly competitive. I don't think I'm like an alpha person, but I like to win, and I don't necessarily remember it until all of a sudden I'm like, oh, now I have to answer, did I just want to win in that situation, or do I want this job, And ladies, if you are the kind of person that likes to win, hold caution in this situation with men too, because I have definitely gotten to relationships where I just wanted to win and I didn't realize it until after.
And you're like, oh, I was just saying what I needed to say to win the answer. Yeah. I mean, that happens very frequently with job interviews. People just get excited and they want to win the interview and they want to like do the best job they can. And then suddenly they get the job and they're like, wait, oh shit, did I even want this?
Oh yeah. I think asking yourself, did I just want to win, is an important part of all job career moves, because you can take a really crappy job and they'll hire you on and it feels really awesome when they're like, we're giving you the job, and it feels great for like a week, and then you're like, damn it.
Now I have to do this job.
Now I have to do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, they'd been looking for a J-Lore person, and I thought they were looking for a chain person, which would have been fine. It still would have been a level up. It would have been something a little bit broader. It would have definitely increased my skill set. So I went down, and it was, well, I should preface this with the guy who was interviewing me. Oh, actually, wait, I'm going to preface the preface. I'm sorry. In case you were worried that I don't talk too much, I've got plenty of stories. I remember when I found out about this, it was January, and we had been selling one portfolio during the holiday time for a very, very long, it was a hard push, and I was overselling it, and I really wanted to put in some J-Lore because it sells easily. It's a really great brand. And so I built these 3 huge displays, and then randomly somebody had told me, oh, hey, they're looking for a J-Lore person. And I go, oh, now this was the year that J-Lore had just won Winery of the Year with Wine Enthusiast. So I emailed the guy who became my future boss and was like, oh, hey, I heard you guys just won the Wine Enthusiast. Well, I just built these displays, and I was wondering if you have a really high-quality JPEG so that I can attach it to the displays. Oh, by the way, I hear you're looking for a new candidate. Here's my resume.
Oh, well, here.
That was one of my better moves. I'm more proud of that, strategic move than most others. And anyway, long story short, he calls me back and he goes, hey, listen, we're auditioning. I'm about to say auditioning again. We're interviewing a lot of people, and we'd love to have you come in, but we need you to understand, like, there's a lot of people with a lot of experience, so the likelihood of you getting this job is really slim. But we'd still like to meet you if you'd like to meet us. And I go, well, yeah, let's do it. I mean, what have I got to lose? If I'm at this point sort of doing this more as a social call to kind of further and broaden the people that I know and the people that could maybe in the future provide a job, why not? So I drove myself all the way down to Orange County, and thankfully it was one of those interviews where it was like all three levels of management were together versus one and one and one. And so we just sat there and like talked football. And, you know, I talked about obviously what I'd done up to that point. I talked about wine, but we mostly just, you know, BS'd about the Big Ten. And I think the Huskers, that was the year they were moving to the Big Ten, and there was an Ohio State person there. And so we just talked. And I remember I was like, that was fun, cool. I don't think anything's going to come of it. And Monday morning, I get a call from my then boss, and he goes, hey, we want to offer you the broad market job. And I go, you mean the chain job? No, I mean the broad market job. I go, I didn't even know you needed somebody on broad market, but yes, I'll take it. Okay, thank you.
So wait, what's broad market versus chain?
Remember when I was saying before, broad market is everything independent.
Okay.
And everything restaurant and everything restaurant and bar, which is exactly what I wanted to be back into. Like, I wanted so badly to be back in that world versus, you know, the grocery store world. I would have done the grocery store world happily. But so it was kind of one of those like extra bonuses where I'm just like, this is great.
I got the job I didn't think was possible to get, and it's better than I thought it was.
Exactly. And they were such a fabulous company to work for. I loved working for them, but I kind of skipped the strategic step in, if you were in the wine world, going to grocery store, the next logical step would be to be selling wine in the broad market, as what I'm doing right now. So it would have been to do that and then maybe go be a supplier after that. Because I remember when I got the supplier job, the VP of sales at my distributor, who I was going to be working with, was like, you got a retirement job. I go, a retirement job? He goes, yeah, that's the kind of job you go into and then you retire.
Oh, okay.
Cool, great. And so I ended up working as the Los Angeles area sales manager on broad market side for J. Lore Winery for about 6 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good stretch.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things, I don't know if you do this, but I definitely do this. When I decide I want to take a job, I give myself a time frame for when I want to reassess how I feel about that job. Mm-hmm. And to me, when I looked at what this job had, when I looked at the potential, when I looked at what it was teaching, you know, going to teach me and the kind of timeline I needed to build it up, I said when I got hired, you know, to myself, I'm giving this job 5 years and then I will reassess how I feel about it. And for me, that's always really worked out pretty solidly. Yeah. Just to kind of go, because then you're not constantly chomping at the bit in a mental way. I don't know if does that make sense?
No, actually, I think that's a really good time frame. I've never had a job for more than 3 years. So clearly I set different parameters for myself, but I think that's a really smart thing to do though, because it really does kind of free you up to not feel like you have to dive head first. Yeah. And achieve all these crazy things right off the bat, because there's always a learning curve with any job you take. I mean, I feel like with most jobs, you really need at least a year to know what the hell you're doing and to feel like
completely
you're not still getting the lay of the land. And so at that point, you know, if you go with the 5-year marker, you can do so much in your career in 5 years. Like people get freaked out about having invested too much time in one area and they're afraid to switch industries or switch roles because they've put too much time into it. It's like, oh no, you have 40 plus years of working. Like, even if you only split that into 4 quarters and did 10-year chunks, you could have 10 very different careers throughout your whole overall career. So 5 years is a great chunk because that's 1/8 of that, right? So it's like, you can pretty much, not that you can become an expert, but kind of, you can pretty much like solidly hit that industry and be considered like somebody, you know, really influential in the space in 5 years.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And I think just another aspect of this is something that it really taught me, and it's something that I try and tell literally anybody who's applying for a job. Because I think, and this is partially sometimes a woman thing, but not necessarily, because I've given my husband the same speech. I think we are told that we can only apply for jobs that we know that we already have the skill set for.
That is a woman thing.
Yeah. It is definitely distinctly a woman thing. And I will say the current job I have notwithstanding, every job prior to that, when I got hired to run a gourmet department, I bought a cheese book the day after it happened because I knew nothing about cheese.
You're like, I can totally do this. Oh God, I need to learn about cheese.
Yeah, like I knew nothing about, working in grocery stores and selling wine in there. I knew absolutely nothing about broad market because I'd skipped that step. And so I was going into being a supplier, I was going up the tier and going into a market that I had no comprehension of how it worked. And I mean, I knew that I could figure it out. So it's like, it's one of those things that if this has taught me anything, and maybe this is coming from acting, once again, that rocket science thing where I'm like, I could be a rocket scientist, is that if a job sounds interesting, go for it. Like, let them tell you no. Like, I think that's probably the strongest bit of information I could ever give to anybody, is that I knew jack all about those 3 jobs and I still got hired.
So what do you think allowed you, not even the confidence, because I think you're totally right that the acting thing just built up your shell, your thick skin, so that you could do anything and you knew you were going to be okay. I think dealing with a series of rejections early on is some of the best life experience one can get, because you learn that you're going to come out on the other end and not be dead. Right?
Of course. Yes.
You're like,
very much.
Sure, this is going to hurt today, but tomorrow I'm still here. I'll do something different. You're not so worried about that failure because failure is just, a speed bump. So for you with these jobs, first off, I think you're totally right. Like, there's some crazy stat where it's like most women feel the need to be like 95% qualified for a job before they'll even apply. And most men, it's 60% qualified. Mm-hmm. So like, if they're like, I have one of those 20 bullet points. Sure, I'll do it. And, you're right to your point. Like, you can't get a job that you don't apply to. So you never know. So with you, I mean, 3 of those types of roles, I think that's really fantastic. And that also makes sense why the 5-year time frame works for you, because you're essentially starting not from zero, but kind of more on that novice end. So you need more runway to get up and running and learn. So for you, what do you attribute getting those jobs to? Do you think it was like your confidence or your gumption, or that you were able to show opportunity for growth, over, well, I already know this stuff, so hire me?
I think it was a combination of some of the strategic things that I chose to know ahead of time. And once again, like, obviously if you have a college degree, I'm sure everybody who has a college degree knows that it pretty much stands for a lot of stuff. People stop looking at what you actually got a college degree in after a while. But like, there's a lot of different educational things that you can do that have nothing to do with getting a master's. So there's that aspect of it. But also, and maybe this is just me, a lot of jobs have a similar set of skills. When you're looking at those bullet points, obviously there are going to be things on there that you're like, I've never done that. I have no idea how to do that. I have no idea how to run computer program XYZ, blah, blah, blah. That's going to be my entire whatever.
Wait, and you know what? I have to say something on that note. So I had applied for a job once. I don't even remember what the title was, but the recruiter I was working with accidentally gave me the wrong qualifications sheet. And so the night before my interview, I'm like, it said needs to be proficient in Ruby on Rails, which for those of you unaware, that's like a computer programming language. And I had never heard of Ruby on Rails. And so I'm looking through the bullet points and I'm like, oh God, I don't know why he's putting me up for this role. And so I Google like Ruby on Rails, trying to like at least, familiarize myself with the language. And I'm looking and I'm like, I can't go on this job and I don't know what Ruby on Rails is. And the next day he's like, oh, JK sent you the wrong one. Here you go. And yeah, so it was funny. I was like, I don't think I could have pulled that one off, but yeah, I was trying to Google Ruby on Rails the night before a job interview.
God, I know. Well, and to that point, I do think it is really, really important to do research. Like, know what kind of company you're getting yourself into. Know some things about it, like, and especially in sales, know what they sell if you can. Wow. Like know a little bit about it. And I think more than anything, and maybe this is just specific to sales jobs, I'm a people person. Like, I know that I'm going to go into an interview and I'm going to relate to you as a human.
Yeah.
I'm going to relate to you as a human, and I'm going to talk like we've known each other for a while, because I think the most important part of interviews is not the what are your 3 weaknesses question. It's the we randomly started talking about how much we both still love the Spice Girls, and oh my God, I still follow the Spice Girls, and blah, 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 blah. And like, that's the moment that's going to connect you with another human being. All interviewing is connecting with another human being. And unfortunately, since I'm in sales, that's literally my job, is going in and finding a connection quicker than anybody else.
I mean, that's the best skill I think anybody can bring to an interview. And I talk about it a lot on this show. It's like, you need to find a way to just build the tiniest little connection with that stranger as of today, because people remember how you make them feel. People remember, like, yeah, I don't exactly remember what she's done before, but like, I really liked her. You know, people totally hire. I mean, yes, there are some jobs where you have to be 100% qualified for the role, of course. But for most jobs, to your point, like, a lot of the skills transfer. And even if you've never been in this particular industry, you've probably got skills that you can bring with you to it that are totally relevant. So, I mean, and when you're up against, however, God knows many people you're interviewing against, like, you need to make that good impression where you stand out. So that's awesome. I mean, I feel like your acting experience has totally tied into and influenced your whole professional career, you know. Completely. And like the sales thing, it's so smart. Like, I think if we all took the approach in a job interview of like, you're trying to make that connection, you're trying to basically just sell yourself, it would make things so much smoother and probably more successful for you.
You are. I mean, selling yourself, it's funny because I say, oh, I can sell any product, blah, blah, blah. You know, I was having myself be rejected in all of these auditions. Like, you kind of get rid of that fear when you go through 20,000 auditions, because rejection is the norm, you know? So it's one of those things that now going into interviews, I have really awesome, you know, educational credentials behind me. I've been in the industry for a while, but more than anything, like, I'm selling a person who makes them feel, you know, confident. I'm selling a person who makes them feel like I have, you know, the qualifications. Like, there's a lot of that, you know, like, it's selling a me. What is the me product, you know?
So so I guess kind of on that note, like, what are some sales strategies that you use, if you're even aware of them? Because I know sometimes if you're a good salesperson, you're just doing it naturally. You're not intentionally, you know, doing anything. It just comes across as very charismatic and all of that. But what are some sales tips that you can give to people that are like, oh, I'm really bad at sales, I'm not good at selling things? Like, I've always been the person that has said I'm terrible at sales, and it's just because I keep talking and I talk myself out of the sale at that point. I don't shut up at the right time, if you can only imagine that. So yeah, what are some good sales tips for, like, even just connecting with somebody quickly? How do you go from knowing nothing about this person sitting in front of you to finding that Spice Girls connection?
You know, I love this question too, because this draws back to, you were saying, I love a good personality exam. I hate them, because I got to be honest, on a personality exam, I'm an awful salesperson. If I take a personality exam and I completely, absolutely, 100%, you know, answer everything the way I truly feel, I do not look like a good sales rep. Like, I look pretty bad. I'll never forget. So an interview I was going on about a year ago, they made me take this huge personality exam, and I was really ornery about it because I was on vacation. And, you know, you're supposed to take these things in like a quiet room, like all by yourself. And I was in New Mexico and decided to take it in a really loud bar while drinking bourbon, and just being like, here's your answer. This is how I feel. I'm answering honestly. Take that. Side note, don't do that.
Keep in a good headspace.
Yeah, side note, don't do that at all. But that's neither here nor there. My husband claims that I was self-sabotaging for completely different reasons. But I remember, it came back and the thing said, they're like, okay, competency, you're perfectly competent. You're totally smart enough for this job. However, couple of things. You don't care enough about money for this job, and you care too much about your interpersonal relationships for this job. And I'm just like,
But that's sales.
okay, thank you. But I am not, and I've realized this about myself, and so it was a good learning experience. I'm not a shark. Like, I'm not one of those sales reps who goes in, smells blood in the water, and just goes after it, because that's not my jam. Like, I am a people person. Like, I like being the kind of sales rep that I've built up the rapport that, I know what you're looking for, but you're willing to sometimes do me favors because I do you favors. I'd rather build up it's a more complex version of selling. I call myself a dolphin. I'm not a shark, but I will use my other dolphin brethren to push the fish into the shallow end where we can feed upon them for a while.
Collaboration over competition. I love it.
Yeah, that's me. Like, I can't go the other way, because just not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So as far as like sales strategies for anybody who wants to get into the sales industry, I have a friend who's been in sales for forever, and she goes, you can sell sprocket A, you can sell sprocket B. Sales are sales. And it's totally true, but it does help. I will recommend getting into a sales where you're selling a product that you love and can get really behind. It makes your life a lot easier. I have sold products that I do not believe in, and you figure out a way to do it. However, it is a lot easier if you can believe somewhat in what's behind what you're selling people. But as far as like day-to-day stuff, I'm really self-deprecating. Like, I will usually, I find with other humans, like, that's an easy way to make a quick connection when you're getting to know them, is to talk about, not in like a awkward way, but like, yeah, God, I'm useless with a TV remote. That's a horrible example, but you get what I'm saying, Like, find ways, because that for me that's one thing that I use, because it makes them, I don't feel superior, and they feel like we can connect on, we're humans being humans. I always think that that's the most important.
People like flawed people.
Yeah.
Feel like, oh, okay, you're not thinking you're better than me. You're not comparing yourself to me. We're all just insecure little nuggets at the end of the day.
Of course. Oh, at the end of the day, salespeople often, you get that vibe that they're very confident. You're really, you think you're really awesome, but oh, please. I got anxiety like everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, we drank wine for a reason, right?
Yeah, I drink wine for a reason.
So right now, you've been in the industry for what, 10-ish years?
10-ish years, yeah.
Okay, so do you think that you will continue down this path, or are you still in the midst of one of your 5-year cycles where you're like, I'll assess later?
I definitely, I started this job last year. I wouldn't say in a 5-year cycle, but I would say I'm at least in a 3-year cycle. I really like this job. I lucked out. Moving to Denver was more of a personal reason than it was a professional reason. So I've told my boss this, like, I would have taken a job selling like Red Bull. I would have done it because I needed a job. However, I lucked out so much with the company that I'm in, and the book is amazing, and the people are awesome, and I love my territory, and I really see its potential. So I would not necessarily maybe say 5-year, but I would definitely say I'm in a 3 or 4-year cycle before I reassess what I want to do. But I don't really know exactly where I want to go. I'm in wine. Wine is who I am. I'm in sales. Sales, that's what I am. I think the only change that would ever sway me to a different side is still a version of wine, and that would be like opening up a, wine shop, maybe a little coffee thing with my husband. And that would be years down the road. That would be the only thing I think that would take me out of it. Going forward, I have had a fascination. I know my last job had manager in the title, but I really wasn't a manager. And so I've had a fascination with more direct management, just because I think that I have a skill set that can help people realize their best potential but also achieve ends for a company, work on both ends. So that's something I'm very fascinated with, is going into something managerial and trying my hand at that.
Ooh, I love
Um,
that. That so speaks to my heart because to your like finding that middle piece on the Venn diagram between your needs as an employee and the company's needs from what they
yeah,
need from you. If you can find a way to create that culture as a manager of transparency and trust, where you can say to your employee, like, what's long term, like, what's the end game for you? Okay, cool. This is what we need to get out of our experience together. But let's shape that and shift it in a way that's also going to help you along your own career path. And so we all win. That's the
yeah.
best scenario ever.
Oh yeah, I haven't ever done that before. So I feel like that's something that, while keeping in the wine industry, I like to learn new things. And so for me, that entire aspect of personality and working with personalities would be really interesting to me. And I would be open to exploring an opportunity that came along in that. I also would consider going back into being a supplier for a distributor, or sorry, a supplier for a winery, or a supplier for an importer or something like that, just because I do really like that job. I really like, the specificness of it, but it's just different. That would be something, though, moving to Colorado, that I would have to make a decision of probably being more of a multi-state manager. So I would have to commit to more travel than I did before, which, has a lot of ups and downs,
Yeah.
travel jobs.
Those are really great when you're like 23, 24, and you're like, I don't care. I'll go everywhere. I don't need to sleep. Ugh.
And the other side of that, also really great if you're like, say, 50-ish, and your kids or whatever are grown up and in college, and you're not trying to start a family or anything like that. So there's the other side of that too.
Yeah, I think the zone of 20 something and then maybe mid 40s and above is great for those kind of roles. Well, it sounds like too
Completely.
in this industry, there are a lot of different kind of setups for work life balance. Like it sounds like
Very
the
much.
grocery store job was very much like early riser, totally different than your roles, working in like with restaurants, which I imagine is a different time of day. And even now, are your hours like normal kinds of hours? No.
No, I would say, the thing about, and I'm sure this is probably true for more than just wine sales, but specifically for my job, I get up on a typical day. I get up, I go to my iPad, I check all my orders. In the meantime, I look at my emails and I answer those, and I set up my day. If there's a problem, I have to wait until 8 a.m. and then I have to call and get it fixed. Then I might, casually, hang out for a minute, get ready for work, maybe read a book for like 15, 20. But then I'm out in the fields, maybe going to the warehouse beforehand, restaurants. I sell only to restaurants right now. So, restaurants open at 11. So I start on the cycle of seeing people at 11. Some days I maybe have like a doctor appointment in the middle, and it's fine. Some days I, finish up my day at 6 and I come home and I get right back on the computer to prep presentations for the next day. But some days you're done by 5 and that's it. The problem with sales jobs, more than anything else, is that if you are an overachiever, if you are one of those inherently hardworking people, you can really burn out. And you have to be very, very, very cautious with your limitations. I've found that I like the kind of job that's more invasive, if you will. That's not a very pleasant word to use, but I don't mind a job where my life is the job. Like after this, I'm going to be doing a staff training for an hour, on a Saturday.
You
But
love your job. It's not, it doesn't feel like this work life balance thing has to happen. It's all intertwined.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can love a job as much as you like, and there are still times, last week when I came home and I had 3 presentations to prep, and I'm sitting there working, and it's like 9:30, going, "Oh my God, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My brain is kaput." A job is still, no matter how much you love a job is still a job, but that doesn't mean that you should leave it. You just have to find balance within it.
100,000%. Yep, you are totally right. I mean, even the jobs you're completely obsessed with and passionate about, and the fact that you're still so into this job 10 years down the road is a really good sign. I'm a little jealous that you have found something that you could do for that long. I have yet to land on one thing in particular that like I could see myself doing for the rest of my career. But yeah, well,
But
I
I
think
think that's the norm, the norm. Long gone are the days where people, find one job and then stick it out for 35 years. Like nobody does that anymore. And
yeah.
even within, my industry, like taking different levels of that job is just kind of how I keep things fresh for myself. I just know that I like this category and I am this kind of person, so I do this fairly well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You've gotten to do different types of jobs within the same industry. And I think if you can find something like wine for you that you are curious about and you can still learn about and then take all these different types of roles under one umbrella, I think that's the secret to lasting happiness with
Yeah.
a career.
I think keeping things fresh is always important. There are times like with selling wine in grocery stores that you're going to have to take a job that is going to suck, but take those jobs that suck strategically.
Yes.
Take them and know your limitations and go, okay, it's going to suck. Anybody can take a job that sucks for a year. I'm telling you right now, you can do it. You'll start planning at 6 months. I will also tell you that. However, you can do it for a year. Anybody can do it for a year. But just make sure that it's giving you the things that you need in return.
Yeah, it needs to be a building block. If you're going to suffer through a year of not loving what you're doing, you better make sure that it has a purpose. Otherwise, you're going to be resentful and bitter and hate everything, and everybody's going to be not wanting to hang out with you because you're grumpy all the time. Yeah, I think the strategy behind that is so freaking important. And it sounds like you've made really good strategic moves. And also, you have a pretty fairly fun job, which is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I still am tasting wine at 10 a.m. It's fine.
I mean, who doesn't love that? Well, Erin, this was so great. Thank you so much for telling us all about how you got into wine and all the ways that you can use sales to connect with people. I think there's a lot of really good nuggets in here for people across every industry and every type of job. So thank you. And yeah, in 5 years, let's check back in and see what the hell you're doing then.
Right? I mean, who knows at that
Who
point?
even knows? That's assuming the Baily Hancock show will exist in 5 years. I mean, that would be great. If it is, then we will be able to say today, she found her something.
I know. I mean, I'll shoot for at least 3 years for you.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's your record. We'll go for
That's
3.
my marker. Yeah, that's my baseline.
But we'll keep 5 in the happy distance.
Yes, I like it. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, we'll see you next time. Bye.